Hey guys, what is going on? It's Hunter here, and welcome back to yet another video. So, this one is going to be more in the format of like my quote unquote schmulecasts, as I call them, where I just kind of sit down, update you guys on my life and everything like that. But I'm not going to be throwing that in the series because I feel like this video needs to have the notion that it is much more important than just a ramble. A lot of these topics that I'm going to be covering, hopefully a little bit more in depth than maybe I had previously. I definitely have talked about over the last 3 years, but maybe not as extensively, and maybe there's some new details that you guys have not heard. So, without further ado, sit back, relax. You don't have to watch whatever game plays in the background unless you're interested in it or, what have you. But yeah, here we go. This is going to be a long one, so that's why I said get comfy. And before I start all this, I do just want to say, I'm a very nostalgic person. If you guys, and trust me, no chip off my shoulder, does not hurt my feelings at all. If you guys aren't super interested in this, it completely up to you to sit here and listen. If you don't want to, that's fine too. So, anyways, this all starts back in 2018. I actually just sat here for about the last half an hour writing all this out, by the way. But, anyways, it all starts in 2018 with my very first diagnosis of hyperthyroidism. So, I started school in 2006. That means 12 years later, I was 18 years old and a senior in high school, meaning, of course, I was going to be graduating at the beginning of summer of 2018, as I did. I wasn't the best student in high school by any means, but I at least did what I could do, at least in order to graduate on time. So that way I wasn't super far behind, you know? And all was fine and dandy. I graduated high school and was probably the happiest I had been ever just because I didn't have to go to school anymore. But I definitely will say, at least looking back at it, there's a reason that people are so nostalgic with high school. It really was the easiest and most simple time in my life, even though at the beginning of 2017 I lost someone extremely close to me, and that was very hard to deal with. I did get into my first relationship, and I'll kind of touch on that. It's a relationship; they are what they are, but definitely did not end the way I had wanted. That's for later in the story. So as I said, that was a relationship that I had gotten into, and actually my first serious one. So of course, I'm on cloud nine, blah blah. Everyone has had their first relationship, I'm sure by now, and if not, they're great, but a lot of shit can happen that makes them not so great. But at this time, it was great. I was having a great time. If any of you have been watching for a while, you know that I am very avid about cannabis as a whole. I absolutely am 100% a supporter, even when I'm in my stages of life where I cannot smoke weed, which I am currently in right now. But at this time, I was smoking weed literally every single day for years by this point. And I was chilling with my ex every day, just very happy. First relationship, honeymoon stage lasted a very long time. By that point, we were together about 6 months, so everything was still going great. And right around middle to end of June, I got my very first job. I'm very fortunate in the sense that I was not forced to work, didn't have to work throughout high school. I know a lot of people do, and I know a lot of people who did. And I'm looking back on it extremely fortunate that I did not have to. So, I work a couple shifts there, everything's going great. Of course, I show up stoned. I'm washing fucking dishes. Come on now. So, I show up high every day, not like out of my mind, but definitely, as me and my buddy say, vibing. Was definitely vibing. So, that was great. I was like, damn, this is easy. I'm working with one of like my best homies. I've known the kid for years now, like 4 or 5 years, or 4 years at that point. And, everything's going great. Everything is going absolutely fantastic. Couldn't ask for a better first job. It was pretty easy, kind of laid back. I'm not, let me preface this. Sorry for stumbling so much right there, but let me preface this, okay? I am not the greatest physical worker that there is. I'm just not. I'm not really motivated by physical work. Construction work does not interest me. Warehousing, which I did work a job in, not very interesting to me. Hated my life. We'll get there though. Anyway, probably was not working as hard as what I should have been, because my buddy recommended me, or not really recommended, but they were in need of a dishwasher, or he needed help washing dishes because that place, quite frankly, was very packed. So, he brings me on and everything. And, you know, I was fresh out of high school, didn't really have much of a work ethic, and was stoned all the time. So, I did what I could. And it wasn't very much, but I at least got the job done, It- you know, a lot of people, they they aren't very honest with themselves. I am extremely honest. I have no issue whatsoever just being very forward and upfront with you guys about who I am as a person. I'm not going to put on a facade. I'm not going to sit here and, just embellish, basically. So, anyways, by the third or fourth shift, my buddy picks me up. At this time, I didn't have a license, a car, nothing. Never took driver's training or anything like that. So, still needed a ride to work. And he comes and picks me up. I smoked that day, whatever. But one thing I do want to mention is I remember the night before I had gotten extremely stoned. And I might throw in the Snapchat. I don't know. I very well may. Copyrighted music though. So if there is no audio or it's just playing in the background right now, cool. But I was extremely stoned that night, and I remember it very vividly. I was sitting in my room, and there was just something, let's say, different about that night. And, I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't anxious, just me being stoned felt rather off, to say the least. And I went to bed that night and woke up the next day. I didn't work till the afternoon. It was more of like an afternoon type shift. Went in at about 3 or 4, just depending on the day. It was there until about 10 or 11. It was all under the table though, so I was paid at the end of the shift. No big deal, right? Well, this day, me and my buddy, I'm sure he won't care if I use his name, me and my buddy Seth, we stop at 7-Eleven on our way to work. I had just smoked, and I knew I was going to be tired, right? So I wanted to pick me up later in the day. I was just going to get an iced coffee, and looking back, I really wish I would have, because if any of you have listened to my very first hyperthyroidism story and all that, you will be well aware of why I say this. But for those of you who have not listened to it, here is why. So we stopped there. I was going to grab an iced coffee, like I said. I see him grab a 5-hour energy drink, and, of course, I'm a young kid and all that, and I had drank Monster before and all that, and, had some energy drinks. Cool, whatever, right? Well, the one that I had never had was a 5-hour energy, right? So I drink that beforehand. I go into my shift, drink the whole thing. Says you're really only supposed to drink half, right? Now, I was feeling perfectly fine up until this point. Like, not even talking about just the shift, just in general, was feeling fucking fantastic. Like I said, I felt the best that I had in a long time. And go into the shift, everything's fine for about the first 2 hours, and out of nowhere, I start getting stomach cramps. Stomach cramps soon turn into nausea as well. Without going into too much detail, I attempted to use the bathroom, as we will put it, and nothing happened. So I go back in the kitchen. I go back, do the same thing again. Not much happens, but a little bit. And I also start throwing up. I go back in the kitchen again, this time extremely lightheaded. And I'm like, oh shit, go back to the bathroom. On my way to the bathroom, feel like I'm about to pass out, and I am sitting pretty close to the middle of the dining room, right? I have pins and needles, elbows down on both arms, knees down on both legs. Very terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Probably some trauma that needs to be worked out, and probably part of the reason that I get as anxious as I do sometimes, if I'm being completely honest with myself. So, as I said, very traumatic. Have people all around me just ask me if I'm okay. They go get me a washcloth, all this. They didn't call a paramedic or nothing like that. And they end up going and sitting me in this little side private dining room or whatever, trying to get me to eat food and, all this, thinking that it's going to make me feel better. Well, I can tell you right now firsthand, if anything, it made me feel worse. The only feeling, minus the pins and needles on my arms and legs, that I can compare it to is, from what I remember anyway, what it was like when I had the stomach flu when I was younger. Just couldn't keep anything down. Anytime I tried to eat anything, it just made me more nauseous. It was a really bad time. I had called my ex, though, to come and pick me up, and sure enough, she did. I threw up like 2 or 3 more times. One of the cooks in the kitchen was like, look, man, if you can't handle it, blah, blah. It wasn't that I couldn't handle it. It's just shit really hit the fan. And over the next week, I was literally in a panic attack from the time I woke up till the time I went to bed. And yet again, another very traumatic experience. If anyone has never had severe anxiety or felt like your heart was racing out of your chest for an extended period of time for literally zero reason, you simply cannot understand how terrifying that week really was for me. I'm really not a fan of my ex, and we'll get into why that is, but I will at least say that, I am very thankful for the fact that she was there for me throughout literally the worst time in my life, both after Ethan had died and right then, because holy fuck, that was absolutely horrific. By day 7, I literally could not handle it anymore, and for the first time in my life, I ended up in the ER. The ER really was not bad. I don't have a fear of needles. I have an extreme phobia of blood, though, due to some shit that I saw when I was a kid. I guess graphic warning, not a picture or anything, but I watched a kid get smacked in the fucking mouth with a baseball bat and pour blood, and ever since then, blood has just always made me very lightheaded and not good. So, of course, in the ER, they have to put you up, or they have to hook you up to an IV, right? And that's all fine and dandy, whatever. Sucked, but oh well. Pretty sure, yeah. I was wondering if it was blood work. Was not. The nurse that put in my IV for the first time, mind you, this to someone who hates blood, mind you, the very first time, blows out my vein. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is, I don't know what the anatomy of it is. I really don't want to, but it fucking hurts. Felt like a pinch, but over the next couple days, I had a big ass bruise on the crease of my arm. And when I say crease, the opposite side of your elbow. But yeah, that sucked. That was not a fun experience. That kind of scarred me from getting blood work after that. And I don't remember if it was the IV or the blood work, but hated the fucking blood work as well. Again, don't like blood, don't like the idea of needles being in my vein, but shots are perfectly fine. Sorry if anyone, I'm not going to. That joke might have been a little too far, as it was going to be drug related. I could not say that. I'm leaving it in though. This is as raw as it can be. But anyways, furthermore, I'm in the hospital, they do my blood work, don't say anything about my thyroid, they say my potassium looks a little low, because something I forgot to mention is I was shaking like I had ALS, and I'm not even saying that lightheartedly, I mean I was literally like damn near vibrating. Could not sit still. Not only was my heart rate extremely high for doing nothing, it was awful. I literally couldn't sit still for 2 reasons. Extremely high heart rate, nervousness and anxiousness. That's all one reason. Well, at least group it. And the other being the fact that my potassium was extremely low. And if you guys don't know what that causes, it causes tremors, and mine were horrific. So I get out of the hospital. They recommend me to a cardiologist here where I live, very close to me. And I go and see him for the first time. Go in there, heart rate of 135 or 6, something like that. Very high, just sitting there, of course. So, it's kind of concerning. And it wasn't until he looked over my blood work and noticed, hey, your thyroid levels look a little out of whack. Me being completely, just oblivious to what your thyroid can do. And boy, have I learned. But, I didn't know what your thyroid did, and I didn't know how bad it could be if it was all out of whack. So, he recommends me to an endocrinologist, and I am extremely, just massively fortunate that I have an endocrinologist in my town. And I mean, literally, when I tell you, I don't live in the middle of nowhere, but my town is quite small, and it's not very upscale at all. So the fact that I have an endocrinologist office here, literally within 2 miles down the road from me, is a godsend more than anything. And I'm not even a religious person, but that could not have aligned any better than what it did. Because, since all this, I've read online that some people have to travel hours and hours to go see their endocrinologist. And it is very hard to book an appointment with them as well, whereas mine was super easy. Within a week, I was in there, and he's checking me out for all the symptoms of hyperthyroidism and everything else, and pretty much right on the spot diagnoses me and gets me started on one of my medicines that I am still on to this day, which is methimazole. It is a anti-thyroid medication. On top of that, I was put on a potassium med, and by my cardiologist to control my heart rate, I was put on a beta blocker known as metoprolol ER or Toprol XL, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it is an extended release tablet of a beta blocker. Basically, it works by blocking adrenaline. It will still let some adrenaline through. It doesn't completely block it. I don't know if that would be deadly, but it doesn't seem like it'd be a very great thing. So yeah, I have been on those. I was on them for about a year and a half, stopped taking them without doctor's permission, which with beta blockers can actually be quite dangerous. Luckily, I kind of tapered myself off. And yeah, that's a whole different part of the story. But anyways, I was on that for roughly a year and a half. Same with my other 2 meds as well. And yeah, so after that, a couple months had passed from about the end of June until early August. I was unemployed again. They did not want me back washing dishes because, they thought I couldn't handle it, when in reality, I actually physically had something wrong with me. But I digress. Beginning of August, I go to a job interview for the lovely company Sonic. Just a fair warning, I have not had very great work experiences so far. It seems as though I work for, or have worked anyway, for a lot of very non-empathetic pieces of shit. But I digress. We will jump into my very first official on-payroll job. I was literally hired the same day. He gave me the whole bullshit of, I don't normally do this, but as if fast food is really something you have to qualify for. But, I ended up finding out later that it's something he tells everyone to, kind of put him in good spirits, more or less. So after that interview, I pretty much started work almost immediately. I worked there for about 3 or 4 months, but, of course, I hate to say it, I'm not dogging on anyone that works in the fast food industry, but, you know as well as I do, for the most part, unless you're working your way up through management, it is a very dead-end job, and it's not one that I really cared for. I struggle with motivation even to the day, and if I'm really hating my work, it's not going to make me want to work very hard. So, of course, I pass by bare minimum, whatever. And I really didn't think I was slacking that bad. I would sit sometimes when there was literally nothing to do because no one told me what to do in my downtime, and I genuinely did not know what I could do. I didn't know very much, and of course I struggled because I had never worked fast food before, and I had never really worked a job before, quite frankly. But, the training was not that great at all. I'd never handled cash before, so that was something new. I'd never worked in a kitchen before, so that was new. And, to people's credit, fast food definitely is the easier line of work, but it is also more stressful than people give it credit for. You're serving a lot of people day in and day out. So it may seem very simple, and on the surface it is, but once you get down to the nitty gritty of it, it can be kind of overwhelming, especially as like a first job, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm not cut out for a lot of work. I've realized I'm more efficient if I'm using my head or working on a computer. But I digress. Anyways, I'm there for about 3 or 4 months. As I said, I didn't really care for the job, and I could have tried harder, but it's fast food at the end of the day. And I was like, whatever, they're in need of people. I shouldn't lose this job. I'll be here till, I decide I want to leave, right? Well, I ended up getting let go. That is a very common theme with my jobs, unfortunately, which I know does not look great on my resume, but yeah, is what it is, right? Especially with the way that I've been let go, I don't fucking care. And I'll tell you why. Because after working there for 3 or 4 months, I had heard no word at all to me personally that I would be losing hours or anything, right? And I wasn't even working that many hours at this point, like at all. They weren't really scheduling me, but they're in such dire need of workers, right? So, anyways, I ended up getting let go, but without any notice. I literally found out on my own. I walked in one week, no hours. Name on the schedule, no hours. Walk in the next week, same thing. Find out from, funnily enough, Seth's current girlfriend, who I was working with there before they got together, that, it just so happened that I was off the schedule, right? And I may have misspoke. They started dating while I was working there, but that's not important to the story. And she just kept telling me basically that I was off the schedule. I ended up hitting up the GM, who I thought I was actually pretty close with, but, turns out he's a piece of shit. And basically laid it out there. Literally, I still have the messages. He had never told me once that I was actually let go. After we had talked and everything, he had basically said that, if I wanted to come back in a couple months, that I'd be more than welcome to, I guess. I don't know. That is very confusing. So from November of 2018 until April of 2019, I don't really have much to note. I was hanging out with my buddies, wasn't smoking weed, but I was chilling out with my ex-girlfriend, hanging out with my buddies, playing games all through the night, and it sounds wonderful, right? And when I say chilling with my buddies, I mean in person, unlike nowadays. Can't really do that. It's getting better, but we'll see. So overall, the positives, like I said, I got to chill and talk to my friends all the time, or chill with and talk to my friends, over Discord or Xbox parties, whatever it may have been. It felt, and just overall reminded me of like what summertime usually felt like. And I get it's not summer, but that feeling when you're in high school or school in general, just that summertime vibe where unless you have a job, you literally had no obligations or really anything that you had to commit to throughout the day. So you had all the free time in the world. And compared to this time being on my meds, which again, it's more foreshadowing than anything, I was in a very great state of mind. Never anxious, nothing like that. And all was good. The only negatives to all this is I still had no license, I still had no car, and worst of all, I stopped bringing in money. Now, this has a timeline because, like I said, November 2018 to 2019, I was unemployed, but 2019, my life took a very big change for a lot of reasons. So oddly enough, my buddy Seth, who had got me my first job, started recommending me to this new job that he was working at a warehouse. And I'll say the company name because I don't really care. I'm sure most of you know I live in Michigan, so in the Midwest we have a grocery that is known by the name of Meijer. And oh boy, was I fortunate enough to listen to my buddy and take up the job at this wonderful warehouse. As you can tell, I said that extremely monotone because while I made great money there, it was a horrible fucking time. So, I got the job. They didn't really have too many requirements, all in all. I apologize for the mic peaking a couple seconds ago, my bad. I'm recording this in Audacity and see a massive spike, so I apologize. But anyways, not a lot of requirements. Got the job basically with ease. Still no car, no license at this point, mind you. So getting a ride to work was going to be kind of an issue, and getting a ride home was also going to be an issue. But luckily, another thing I can at least be thankful for from my past relationship is my ex was more than willing to step up to the plate to help me out. I definitely did not deliver on the timeline that I had thought I would be getting a car. But it is what it is. They're not cheap, and I was working a lot. So, I could have definitely tried harder to get the license and get my car and everything. That ended up being a very uh, destructive, I guess, point in the relationship, was she was getting tired of always having to drive me around, which I completely understand. I was an 19-year-old kid at that point, or adult, I should say. And I just didn't have my shit together, but I was finally working a job where I was making decent money. So I thought the timeline I gave her, I would have gotten it done, but unfortunately, I did not. And more than anything, as I said, I don't really have too many good things to say about my ex due to the nature of how our relationship ended. But, it's not to say that there aren't things that I'm not grateful, or, that I can't be grateful for just because of how things ended. And we'll get to that in a minute. But anyways, but along with having some money in my pocket again and everything else, and actually making enough to be able to help out my dad, that comes with bills. And for the first time in my life, I got a very rude awakening on just how much of your paycheck can just diminish very quickly. Don't get me wrong, I definitely had money left over each week, but damn, did a lot of it go to bills. And boy, I'm sure as many of you know who are listening, that is just a joy, ain't it? That was a huge wake-up call for me. Just, as much of a wake-up call as it was that job was going to be a lot more physically demanding and just mentally straining than I had ever thought possible. And I don't know how many of you have worked in a warehouse or can even understand this, but Jesus Christ, do they fucking suck. And I found that out day by day, hour by hour, minute by fucking minute that I had worked there. They are a horrible place to be. At least mine was. But again, I don't want to start a career in a field that I know I'm not going to strive in, and that A, was not a place that I wanted a career in, and B, I'm just not about the physicality. I've always been really good using my head with shit, and especially when it comes to computers or working on computers. So hopefully I can get a job in a field pertaining to that one day. But anyways, for the first time in my life, I actually had to start working 12-hour shifts. If anyone here has worked a 12, you know that they are absolutely fucking cancerous. And I mean that in every sense of the word, because they just fucking eat at you and slowly kill you, or at least make you want to die. Because I don't know if you guys have worked super laborious jobs. And again, I know my experience and how I feel towards them. Some people are going to be like, oh, you're a fucking pussy and this and that. Look, man, the fact of it all is some people are better workers when it comes to that type of work. And quite frankly, I found out over the course of 9 months that that is not the field that I was meant to work in. I could, and I did, but it wasn't enough, I guess, right? But, you know, within a month of working there, by the beginning to like midway point, no, it was, I'd say midway towards the end of May, you know, I started working 12s. I got trained on a job function known as hand select, and they can hold you over. And evidently enough, this really, you know, I gotta say, this is one thing I was not a fan of in my last relationship is, you know, I started working and she had her prom because I was a year older than her. So, you know, she's about to graduate, and I went and spent $250 between a suit and the prom ticket, and I had to call off within a fucking month of being there, all because of prom. You know, I had a $250 reservation obligation, I don't know what the fuck you would call it, that I was not going to miss out on due to the amount of money I had invested. That's what we'll call it, an investment, right? And quite the shitty one after I get into some of these details as to why I look at it that way now. But anyways, I had to call off that shift, and, you know, that does not look good when you are new to the company, and I completely full and well understand that. And that was one of my many fuck ups there. We all fuck up. We're human. No one needs to hear that. We all understand that. But, you know, I ended up calling off that day because I had to be there, you know? And we were on a tight crunch because we needed pictures and this and that and blah, blah, right? So I go home, immediately shower, get ready, throw my suit on. I'm out the door, and her mom came pick me up so, you know, she could get ready. And that prom was an absolute shit show. I didn't dance with my ex once. She went and hung out with her friends. I tried to go dance with her, and she pushed me away. Now, a lot of you might be scratching your head and thinking, what the fuck, why, right? Well, little did I know by this point she had been cheating on me. For how long, I have no idea, but I can tell you it was at least a little while, for sure, at least a little while, because unbeknownst to me, that's exactly what was happening, right? So, you know, it is what it is. It fucking had me down bad. I really hated my life at that point. I never even got the closure from her that she was cheating on me. I had just found out through different sources and different means, and, you know, my own investigating of the My Eyes Only and Snapchat. It really said it all. You know, just pictures I had never seen before that were never sent to me that you don't just send to other people. We'll put it that way, right? So, you know, I'm working 12s all the time. I'm making bank like $500 to $600 a week, which some of you might look at like it's chump change. Others of you might wish you were making that, but in order to make that, it was 50 to 60 hours a week, week in and week out in the fucking blistering heat. And, you know, the warehouses only get hotter, especially when you're doing the function known as down tracking, which, you know, there's packages that get sent through the conveyor system that was there. That had barcodes that would send them to doors. Every door, or every person had between 2 or 3 doors each day, and it was hard as fuck for me. It was just so much that needed to be done in such a short amount of time, and people were literally fucking killing themselves working there. You know, and those trailers get hot. They're aluminum. It's basically a fucking sauna without the water, though. The only water you have in there is, you know, either the cups of water or your body literally dripping fucking sweat for eight hours because you couldn't do it for overtime. That was not an overtime function, you know, whatever. We had to go work even harder than that. Whether it was in the mods, which was the most intense function in that place, which I ended up getting stuck in for many, many, many months up until I was let go. And, mind you, this is in 90 to 100 degree days where it's 100 plus inside all day, every day. I really don't know how I did it because heat fucks with me now. Not as bad this year, but last year definitely, and I'll get into that. Um, but yeah, I was working 12-hour days every single day. Um, and like I said, I gave it my all, and they basically told me it wasn't enough. Many months before I was fired, just basically said I wasn't trying hard enough, and I was for months on end. I definitely was, but I stopped giving a fuck because my best wasn't enough, and it is what it is, right? So come September of 2019, as I stated earlier, I started tapering down on my meds because in July I started drinking, coping, whatever. I'd miss getting fucked up, and between working a shit show of a job and having all the shit go down with my ex, I just wanted some form of release, and I didn't turn into an alcoholic or anything. I would drink like 1 to 3 times a week, if that, and go hard on my days off, right? Or nights off, whatever. And throughout this time I was taking my meds, not as regularly though, and by September, one night I had decided I'm gonna try smoking weed, right? And sure enough, I try smoking weed. I feel great. I missed the absolute fuck out of it, just as I do now. And yeah, I started smoking weed again. I had one like pretty bad panic attack, like a week to 2 weeks into smoking, but after that, everything was smooth sailing. Everything at that job stayed the same up until I was fired. No difference. They didn't want to try and help me anymore, nothing like that. They just let me struggle and crash and burn, basically. So fuck them for that. They really didn't care for me. I liked maybe one manager there, two, but apparently he didn't like me because I was struggling again, and they didn't cater to that. And, I watched so many new hires walk in and out of that place within days of being hired because of how shitty the work was. But me, who sure I called off sometimes when I genuinely was not feeling good, and would leave early when I genuinely again was not feeling good, and I don't know, man. They just did not want to work with me. They always, and still to the day, think that they're gonna have people who are willing to work there, and very few actually end up staying. And yeah, I mean, like I said, everything stayed the same, and it was just bullshit. So I was just stoned every day, and that's how I got through it, quite honestly. Um, then the day of my termination, very early February, within like the first week of February, might have been like February 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in there. I got fired. Quite frankly, got fired, right? Well, how fucked up is it that I go in for my shift and go through my almost literally like 6 or 7 hours of my shift thinking that everything is fine, that I'm just there to work like any other day, right? They wait until like an hour, half an hour, hour and a half, somewhere in that time frame, anywhere from a half hour to an hour and a half, to call me down to the office. The managers had this nice, wonderfully heated or air conditioned office, right? While we're all dying in the heat or freezing in the cold, fuck us, right? The people who are actually doing the work, not the people just sitting on their fucking ass all day. Fuck us, But anyway, go into the office, and a manager there who I would literally still to the day fucking curb stomp because he is just a cocky piece of shit. He tells me that one of the managers wants me down in the office, at the front office, because you had the front office workers and then their office and then the general manager, whatever the fuck you wanted to call him, director of operations. I don't know. He was like the general manager, basically, like the highest up person in that department. You know, so there's 3 offices. I go to the front one. That's where I'm sure like they handle all the trucks and the new hires and this and that, whatever, right? Go in there, very first time in 9 months working there that my union reps have or had ever came up and talked to me, right? So I go down there, uh, basically giving me the spiel of, that they have to let me go for this and that or the other, whatever the fuck, right? And initially, I wanted to fight it because 2 of my write ups were complete and other bullshit, and they impacted anywhere from like 8 to 12 other people, right? The first one, especially, impacted, I think, 11, and then the next one, it was like 8 or 9, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, so, they they're telling me all this, then I start telling my union reps about it, and my managers just sitting there like, duh, just drifting off into space while I'm fucking ratting them out for being pieces of shits, basically. And when you're shipping that much product and everything, or whatever. I'm right. When you're shipping that much product, you have auditors, people that go around, they check to make sure that all the right product is there and this and that, right? Well, they tried to say that 11 of us had inaccuracies, and accuracy is something that you could, and it makes sense, of course, that you could get marked for, if you're being inaccurate while working. And they tried to say that like 11 or 12 of us had missed something, right? And it ranged from new hires like myself. By that point, I wasn't very new, but I was still pretty fresh. They tried to say that we had accuracy errors as well as people had been there for years and years, and we all knew it was bullshit, right? Then a second one happened and everyone was fucking fuming over it because they're derogatory marks and they're write-ups. They're not just warnings, they are write-ups. And the first one might have been a warning, but the second one was for sure a write-up. I'm pretty sure I remember getting suspended at least for one of those, if not both of them. Which was just bullshit, So I was initially going to fight, and someone from like a higher up from the union was there, and I sat down and talked with him after that meeting, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to try and help you out. And at first I was like, fuck yeah, fuck these people. But then I realized, like, why am I going to keep working here if I'm just going to keep being targeted and fucked with, right? So I was like, you know what, no, I came to the realization that I could easily go find another job that wasn't going to be as stressful mentally or physically. And I did. Within a week, I went to a agency, and like a hiring agency, and they found me a job. I started working afternoons. This was all in like I said, very early February. It was not a bad job. It was super easy, not super late or labor intensive, at least compared to what I was used to doing. But the shift was absolute ass, just hot fucking garbage. Worst shift I've worked so far was 4:30 p.m. to 1 a.m., right? It is so demoralizing going to work when everyone else is getting off. You're watching everyone go home for the day, and I'm just sitting there like, damn, I wish that was me. I literally wish that was me, because I would wake up at 11 or 12, 11 in the morning or 12 in the afternoon, right? And I was like, shit, I, I don't want to go to work now, right? Basically, I don't want to go to work. By that point in the day, I'd already been up for hours. I really just wanted to keep chilling like I was. Well, no, I had to go to work at 4:30. Oh well, at least the job was easy. I got along with everyone there. I did not have a single enemy there. Got along with the managers and everything else. Never had overtime, and quite honestly would very frequently get out of work early. And something I don't have written down in my notes, in my short month of being there, I had multiple days where they brought donuts in, multiple days where they brought pizza. Like, it was actually really fucking cool. But then, of course, right when everything seems to be looking up and I'm actually enjoying the job I'm at and everything else, still smoking weed, of course, and everything, shit just has to hit the fan, because why not? So, if the last 11 months, or if you even want to count before that, hadn't already been bad enough, ding, 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 round two, fight, basically. Because February 24th, I know the date because I can go look at my calendar and I remember it was right around the time that I had turned 20. I went and hung out with my buddies at my buddy Jacob's house, right? And like I said, I was smoking, drinking, all that. So, we're getting fucked up and having a good time, right? That weekend was great. I bought some new wax because at that time I was taking dabs as my way of ingesting the weed, and just had re-upped on wax, spent $50 on it, was some really fire looking and smelling shit, and effects wise was great from what I remember, right? So I was really looking forward to dabbing out those 2 grams. If only. If fucking only I could have. Because literally, that Monday, I'm sitting at home. I took a dab that morning. Something, and it's weird because in the moments, I can't really recognize that anything feels off. You know what I mean? But let me tell you, as soon as it happens and I can look back on it from like even a month after the fact, I remember specifically that something just felt different. I wasn't anxious, but something was not right. So I smoked around noon. I wanted my high to taper off by 2:30. I was fine, whatever. 3:30 rolls around. I'm not stoned anymore, and I'm like, okay, I need to go take a shower. Felt fine, went, took a shower, and as soon as my feet hit the floor after I got out of the shower, all I feel in my chest is just dun 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 dun, and I'm like, what the fuck, and just start panicking. Instant fucking taneously start panicking, right? And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, here we go. And it didn't really click to me like, oh, hyperthyroidism symptoms, right? So I went to work. Panic attack came out of absolutely fucking nowhere. And as well as all the other hyperthyroid symptoms, racing heart, all that shit, right? Felt like I was going fucking insane my entire shift. Heart is absolutely thumping out of my chest the entire time, and anxiety was higher than the fucking Empire State Building, my dude. Let me tell you, it was the roughest shift I have ever, single-handedly, the roughest shift I've ever worked in my entire life, right? So I get through it. I remember I came home, I looked at my wax, and I said, no, I'm not going to. It'll probably make me feel worse. And I will tell you right now firsthand, I am extremely glad I did not, because it genuinely probably would have made me feel like hot garbage. Okay? So I called off the next 2 days. Day number 1 of call off, I go to urgent care. They don't do shit for me. They said I was fine, basically. Day 2 of calling off, I go to the fucking ER. Like I said, ding, 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 round fucking 2. Go there. I don't remember if I got hooked up to... No, I know for a fact I did not get hooked up to an IV that time. What I did do is I got blood taken. They, yet again, actually, no, I take it back. Let's backtrack before I misspeak. I had specifically asked them, hey, I think this might be my thyroid. Please check. Sure enough, he comes back, and oh my God, look who is right. Right? So, I may have went to the hospital and everything, and you would think, oh, well, you know the meds that you were on, right? They should give them to you so you start to feel better. Wrong. Fucking wrong. They gave me Xanax, a med that I have never wanted to take in my entire fucking life unless I absolutely needed to. And in that situation, you best fucking believe I needed to. So, whatever. A drug I never wanted to have in my body unless it was an absolute necessity because I pride myself on not popping pills. If that's your guys' thing, cool. I'm not fully judging, but not my fucking thing. So yeah, I ended up taking like a 0.5 milligram of Xanax, and I was super worried about it because I did not want to be fucking zombified. And I understand that's not a lot of Xanax compared to what some people take just recreationally or medically, but I was rather skeptical. Okay, so I would cut the half in half and take 0.25. And the first time, I think it was a placebo effect, because when I got out of the hospital, I did not feel anxious whatsoever. But, fast forward the next couple days, it did not do shit. Literally did not do shit. I went back to work literally like a day or two, after getting out of the hospital. And just, I felt so bad. Like every single day, I just felt awful. And, I couldn't keep calling off. If I called off more than 3 times within the first couple months, they wouldn't have taken me back. So I toughed it out. And oh my God, it was fucking miserable. I felt basically those shifts, I felt exactly how I did that initial shift when I realized, like, fuck, dude, something's not right. So I ended up getting put on my beta blockers, my thyroid med, and my potassium. Went and saw my doctors, or at least talked to them, because I couldn't go in person. COVID, or no, I did go see them because this was right before COVID. Then all this lasted, me going to work and everything, until COVID, and I was laid off. So from March 15th, it was honestly probably a little bit later, like March 20 to 30th, something like that, before the, nationwide or worldwide shutdown started. I got told one day when I woke up, I got a text from my temp agency that, hey, don't return to your assignment. It is closed until further notice, right? And by this point, we had been working for about a week throughout the start of the pandemic, and the manager, boss, whatever you want to call him, that I told you I was pretty close with, he said he did not see them shutting down. And oh boy, was he wrong. So here we go again. Let's see, fourth time. Let me count. This is now the 4th time that I have been laid off or let go from a job in the span of about a year and a half. Maybe longer, 2 years, I don't know, whatever. I'm not doing the math. 2018 to early 2020, so about 2 years. There we go. So yeah, here I am again, unemployed, no money, no one to hang out with. I could talk to him, online, but in person, no one to hang out with. In around April, my brother, by the way, earlier this year, or earlier of 2020, or hold early 2020, him and I both had built a PC or I had built my new one that I'm still using to the day, and he had built his very first one. So we started playing games together and everything. He, however, was still working through the pandemic because he worked in a gas station. As you guys have always heard, maybe you were a part of it or whatever, there were certain functions that we, as a society, could simply not go without, and he was working in one of those jobs. So, we weren't playing games all the time, but whenever he was off work, fuck yeah, me and him would play whatever, Counter-Strike, and eventually the game that I still hold very near to my heart, Rust, which he evidently got me into, but I ended up playing way more of because, quite frankly, I had more time. But yeah, we were playing Counter-Strike, Rust, whatever games he was buying that we both had at the time. And yeah, everything was pretty great, all in all. And honestly, things just kept getting better. Mentally, I was better. But my meds were just making me feel really weird around this time. It's just kind of a side effect of beta blockers and everything. At least for me, they don't have me really feeling too great, but they definitely help with my symptoms. And eventually, I got to where I am now, so that's cool. But um, yeah, so around this time, right? Got into Rust heavy, started meeting some new people online, talking to them pretty frequently. Throughout this, I was being extremely safe. So I was hanging out with my brother and my mom, and I also got on PUA around this time, which was a fucking godsend for me because I was going through the most during this time, and it would have really sucked to have to be working through how I was feeling. So I'm very glad and I'm very blessed. You guys can have your opinions. Don't leave any political bullshit in my comments though, cuz I'm removing it instantly. I don't give a fuck about politics. I think our government is in fucking shambles and has been for many years, and just we're not going to get into it because I am not left or right winged. I quite literally agree with what I agree with, and I agree with basically, simply put, what is fucking right as a human being. I believe in morals. I don't believe in fucking democracy. I believe people should be morally correct and come morally correct, and guess what? We will be perfectly fine. There's my stance. I don't want to hear yours. So, again, in terms of PUA and unemployment over the last year and a half, just keep the opinions to yourself. If you don't have anything nice to say, I don't really give a fuck. You can comment it, but I don't do not want to hear political opinions. But throughout this time, let's take her to mid-May. I met my wonderful, amazing girlfriend that I've been with throughout all of this. So her and I started hanging out extremely frequently. Her and I both weren't working at the time. She was laid off as well. Told her about PUA. She got some money and all that. So we're chilling. We're having a great time getting to know each other, and, having someone to actually connect with throughout the pandemic was super, super incredible. Of course, we start hanging out all the time, and I really fell for her. So we eventually fell in love, and it's been that way ever since, right? Well, here comes June to August, right? Hanging out with her and everything, I started feeling the best that I had in a very, very long time, which was amazing. It was fucking incredible, right? Didn't have any anxiety at all. But then, lo and behold, her and I go to visit my mom. I don't think that was the first time that they had met. But I think that was the first time that she had met my stepdad and my grandpa, who passed away due to complications and COVID. So rest in peace, grandpa. Wasn't super close to that one. Didn't know him for about 10 or about 9 or 10 years of my life. But, still sucks because that was my mom's dad that she had reconnected with after a long time. But anyways, or a long time of not talking. But anyway, uh, we were planning on going over there so I could see him, spend some time with him while he was up here, because he lives about 3.5 hours away. So he's up here visiting, and in my Pontiac Grand Prix, my '01 Pontiac Grand Prix GTX is all black on the outside, all black on the inside, and on a 90 plus degree day, it is a fucking hot box. And I have no AC. So I suffered a heat related event. Not sure what happened, got extremely lightheaded, heart racing out of my chest, the whole 9 yards. And from that day forward, I had just felt extremely off, just not myself, anxious every fucking day for the most part, did not want to go outside due to the heat. So I would do everything to avoid it. Did not leave the house, to say the least, except for a handful of times when my girlfriend's dad was out of town, and I would go and spend the week basically there. But I didn't really let it stop me too much. Not as much as I had started to after what I'm about to mention. So August 8th, I will never forget the day, I'm sure. August 8th rolls around. I go down to her house. Like I said, I didn't really let it stop me, but that rolls around. I'm at her house, and out of nowhere, I'm just sitting on the couch in the living room watching a movie with her and her dad, and I just start to get incredibly fucking anxious for no reason. Just out of nowhere, out of the blue, right? So that fucking sucked. That day was horrible. It just all went downhill. And from that day on, here's where my mental health absolutely went in the fucking gutter. I was extremely anxious every single day. I would have one good day, 6 bad every week, right? And for no reason. Except it took me a little while to come to terms with the fact that I have heart anxiety. I have cardiophobia, or whatever the fuck it is. Just extremely horrific heart anxiety that has gotten better, but at this time it was just growing and growing. So I really stopped leaving the house. Just minor things would make my heart race, and it was probably 90%, just anxiety. And that's really all it was. I remember I had left a couple times for some important occasions, but I've definitely missed out on my fair share due to how I was feeling. And I remember in late December, I'm going to walk the trash cans up my driveway, and I have probably a good 50-foot driveway, if not maybe a little bit longer, 50, 75, I don't know, maybe less, maybe more, whatever. And I'm walking them up, and out of nowhere, I I just feel my heart racing, and it was really terrifying because it was really hard to breathe. And my girlfriend was over, and she has an Apple Watch, so I slapped that boy on once I got inside and had a heart rate of 157. Not fun. I have not worked out throughout the entire pandemic, and that's why I felt like it was hard to breathe, because I'm out of shape, quite frankly. So I called my cardiologist for an appointment. That takes us up to January 6th. I went into my cardiologist, and, I'd been in there with super high heart rates and everything before. Didn't let it make me anxious, though. I really didn't. And for whatever reason this time, me and my girlfriend are just standing around waiting to get called back. Because I don't know if you guys have been in any waiting rooms throughout the pandemic, but they do not have a bunch of seats together, just to make sure everyone's safe. I go into the office, and like I said, chilling, out of nowhere, boom. And then very, very intense panic attack ensues, for literally no reason. And like I said, never had happened there before. And wouldn't you know it, I get an EKG done, heart rate of 157 again. Not the whole time. It was between like 100 to 120. It really hovered in between there at about 110 though. Was using, again, my girl's Apple Watch. My doctor cleared me. He said everything was perfectly fine except, my excessive heart rate. So since that day, my beta blocker dose got doubled. And that takes us basically up to right about early 2021 to about now. So my second dose seemed to help at first, and I started feeling better, but then I fell back into the old cycle. And before this, by the way, before that doctor's appointment, I had went and walked around the zoo around where my girl lives. They do Christmas lights every year, and she wanted me to go. I was super anxious about going, but everything was fine, except for when I got back in the car and was pretty lightheaded for no reason, but I felt fine and ended up driving home that night, and everything was okay. And I'd went there for Christmas and all that. Like after, I'm pretty sure that was after the whole walking the trash cans up thing, and ended up staying there for 3 days because this is about me, but I'm very proud of my girlfriend. She went through a lot of really bad shit from like the end of October until then, like stomach issues, severe mental health issues, and I'm happy to say that she came out a better and stronger person through it all, and she's been doing wonderfully since. If anything, she's just getting better day by day and has massively improved from then. So, if she ever listens to this, I just want her to know that I'm extremely proud of the progress that she has made. Um, but yeah, so as I said, I fell back into the old cycle. I was still excessively anxious. I even have it in these notes. 99.99% of the time, I was anxious. Like, if anything, it got worse. Um, and I just became as, if not more, reclusive throughout this time. And in turn, our relationship really started to struggle. I actually missed her birthday dinner this year due to how awful I felt every day. And she doesn't blame me, she understands. But uh, we worked out our issues and came to terms with, each other's mental health issues. And yeah, all is well. Nothing to complain about since. We may bicker and argue occasionally, but nothing to where we, are going to end the relationship. So that's wonderful. And she went back to work. I'm still on PUA to this day as I'm recording this, but she went back to work. I was working at a vape shop and now works with her mom in a restaurant. And finally, I would say in May, my anxiety actually started to improve. Uh, about midway through April, I had a virtual appointment with my endocrinologist. They halved my methimazole dose from 5 milligrams to 2.5 a day. And ever since, I have just started to feel a ton better. I've been more active. I've been more willing to go out and do things. I started seeing some of my friends that I hadn't seen in over a year. So, that was really nice. And from June until now, I really only have a couple points. My anxiety is very rare. I'm actually, for once, more often calm and collective than anxious. I've had a few incidents here and there. Like earlier today, I was kind of anxious, but overall, I even have it in here, and I'm not exaggerating. It's like 1,000 times better, man. My relationship is still very strong. Relationships can always improve, and they always have their difficulties, but her and I have overcame every single one. And just here recently, another thing I'm really proud of my girlfriend for is she got an apartment on her own. Um, you know, it's a lot of money, but she's working her ass off and is more than capable of affording it. And it's a super nice place. I love being there. Hate the drive down there, but because her and I haven't mentioned this, but her and I are 40 minutes apart, 40 or 45. So we both have a drive no matter what, but we've made it work. And unfortunately, throughout last summer when I was having really bad issues with the heat, she was coming here and, she will still help me out. She understands I struggle with the heat. So, she'll help me out and drive or whatever when it's really hot out because it doesn't bother her. But, she definitely took the blunt end of all the driving for a long time, and I'm super thankful to have her in my life. But my last final note is, as I said, I'm still on PUA, but that is ending in September, meaning I am going back to work shortly, which does make me a little anxious and a little stressed out just because I've gotten accustomed to a certain amount of money. And quite frankly, when I go back to work, I don't want to work in the same field that I have been. Therefore, the money isn't going to be all that great. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. This has been an hour and almost 10 minutes of me updating you guys on how my life has been over the last 3 years. And I want this to serve as a log for not only anyone who wants to listen to it, but for myself in the future. So, again, I thank you all so much for watching. If you listen to the very end, please leave a comment. I know this is the longest video I will ever post on this channel. And yeah, I really do thank you guys. So with all that being said, I will see you all whenever I upload next. If you guys enjoyed these longer format videos though, a like rating, a comment, a sub, a share, whatever would be very much appreciated. And with all that being said, as I said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all whenever I upload next.